Don't forget folks, before we go any further, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, like the video and all that jibber jabber, and thank you very much for supporting Invincible Asia.
咩事啊兄弟？咩事啊？我咁想打死佢！咪要啊！喂你啊！我話你。
Although Wong Jing had been entertaining Hong Kong audiences with gambling movies ever since his directorial debut, Challenge of the Gamesters, back in 1981, he would go on to reinvent the genre less than a decade later with both Casino Raiders and the cult classic God of Gamblers. Now, while they were both released in 1989, Casino Raiders would come out first, probably allowing Wong to gauge what the audience really wanted and refine his work for God of Gamblers, which quite possibly helped make that the more superior film. After his release from prison, where he was serving time because of a gambling scam, Crab reunites with his old partner Sam to continue their gambling efforts and are soon hired by a casino boss in Vegas to help expose some fraudsters. It's a job that soon puts him in the firing line of some feared Yakuza members from Japan, made only more difficult when Sam falls for Tong, the daughter of a Hong Kong socialite who he eventually marries with the promise of going straight. But as he plays happy families and climbs the corporate ladder of his father-in-law's business, Crab finds himself getting into more and more bother as he continues his gambling journey alone, not least when the Yakuza manage to track down the pair for revenge. It all boils down to blackjack and bullets as Sam and Crab fight back to save themselves, as well as the women they love. While the aforementioned God of Gamblers may have the bigger name in comparison to its predecessor, Casino Raiders is certainly not a bad film by any means. It may run a little too long for its own good, with over-dramatically moments and a few pointless scenes, but the direction is still pretty slick and the film is well made, with a nice mix of locations including Hong Kong, Lake Tahoe in California, and Tokyo, beautifully captured by DOP Joe Chan, who had worked as a cinematographer on Keen Ho's Raining in the Mountain and Legend of the Mountain, as well as films such as Esprit d'Amour, Aces Go Places 3, Golden Swallow, Crazy Companies, and Jet Li's The Master, before going on to shoot Dances with Dragon, Royal Tramp, and Handsome Siblings. Regular co-stars Andy Lau and Alan Tam lead the way as Crab and Sam, and while he's no chow on fat, pop idol and actor Alan Tam has always entertained over the years, from his comedy roles in films such as Armour of God and Esprit d'Amour, and hard action roles in The Last Blood, Dragon Family, and Pantyhose Hero. Although I'd prefer to have seen Andy Lau in the role as Sam and someone like Jackie Chung in Lau's role as Crab, Tam still does a fine enough job right through to the big twist at the end. The gorgeous Andy Lau Takwa had been dominating the 80s on the big screen, with over 30 feature film roles by the time Casino Raiders came about, delivering some memorable pieces in films such as The Boat People, Shanghai 13, Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars, Magic Crystal, Rich and Famous 1 and 2, As Tears Go By, Bloody Brotherhood, and so much more. As Crab, Lau plays a more mature version of his character, Knife, from God of Gamblers, and while he does return for the unrelated sequels, meets his unfortunate end in the second half of the film. The pair are joined by the beautiful Rosamund Kwan and Ida Chan, with the former starring in a throwaway role that sees her play Lau's assistant and girlfriend, Bobo, and Ida starring as Tam's new love, Tong. Kirk Wong, the director of Jackie Chan's Crime Story, Gunmen, and Rock and Roll Cop, stars as an unlikely cop that brings a bit of humour to the show, and the brilliant Eddie Ko also appears as a crime boss with a grudge. The film also boasts a very multicultural cast that sees cameos from Westerners such as Mike Abbott, Bruce Fontaine, and Louis Roth, along with a host of supporting Hong Kong stars and extras including Shum Wai, Luk Chuen, Wong Chi Kung, Robin Shou, Chin Yut Sang, and Lam Kai Wing. Together, Wong Jing and Jimmy Hung do a fine job co-directing, and while it isn't the best of their gambling movies, it's certainly far from their worst. Interestingly, This and God of Gamblers were followed by No Risk, No Gain, Casino Raiders the sequel, just a year later. A film that mentions Chow Yun-fat's character as the God of Gamblers, which almost sets the Casino Raiders movies in the same world to some degree. But this is a far stretch, of course, as most of the films share many of the same cast members that each play different roles in every film. A third part, Casino Raiders 2, would then follow in 1991, this time directed by the great Johnny To, although has no connection to the original as with many Hong Kong film sequels. But as one of the many similarly themed films from this era, Casino Raiders is still a pretty enjoyable flick and definitely well worth the watch, if not for its faster, darker and more action-packed second half.